very, very fortunate to have a good friend here on the line. He is a former rider. He's a man who's involved in the racing game for quite some time, and right now it looks like he could be looking at an Oaks victory here with Midnight Bisou. Joining me from Bloom Racing, Mr. Jeffrey Bloom. Jeff, welcome to the program.
How are you, sir? Good to talk to you.
Well, it's good to talk to you. Hey, now, are you in? I'm assuming you're in Kentucky right now.
Yeah, I actually got here from Florida just following the OBS sale. So I've been here for a few days. In fact, it was great because I was able to get here just ahead of the horse's arrival and make sure that we had everything set up in the way that Bill Spawr would like to have it set up so that there were no hiccups along the way. So. Well, so far, so good.
Let's talk about this team right now. Bill Spawr, you know, for a lot of people who say Bill Spawr, longtime man of California racing. Obviously, if you're on the big stage, Amazombie comes to mind. But to me, one of the best horsemen I've ever known. How did you guys come into business together?
Well, we had my partners, Allen Racing, had been doing stuff with Bill for quite some time. And I've known Bill for quite some time and had always wanted to actually, you know, have him join the roster, and it just sort of came together properly, and from the get-go, we were able to bond and form a really good working relationship. As you know, Bill is highly regarded and really very well respected in the Southern California circuit, but outside of California, you know, he's not all that well known, but as good a horseman as anybody can find, and it's been just a wonderful working relationship from the outset, and then to have it all topped off right now with Midnight Bisou just makes it that much more special.
Well, let's talk about Bisou. I mean, obviously has rattled off 3 in a row. Last time out in the San Diego Oaks, this, to me at least, was absolutely breathtaking. What was going through your mind? Many had said already the track that day was playing slow. It was tough to make up ground. And Bisou around the turn, I'm just going to say it, kind of reminded a lot of people of Zenyatta.
Well, you don't want to know what was going through my mind for the first quarter of a mile of that race, just because we were fully aware of what a dramatic bias there was that day on the track and what a challenge it would be to overcome that much distance on a track that really wasn't playing to that style. But at the same time, with Mike Smith aboard, you know, he just instills so much confidence. And at one point, you know, I looked up at the fractions and I thought, man, I don't care how good this filly is. I just don't know that she can overcome this. And when I saw Mike, you know, riding comfortably and confidently, and he started to just kind of niggle at her a little bit, and she started to pick things up, I thought, if this filly does overcome this situation, she's even better than, you know, I thought she is going into the race. And that turn of foot was just staggering. I mean, it was just mind-boggling to see her do what she did. And then talking with Mike before and after, the way he talks about this filly is in the same vein as many of those really exceptional fillies that he's been a part of. So it does kind of give you those goosebumps. It gets you excited, and it makes you feel like you've got a very legitimate chance to take down a race like this.
We're watching the race right now, and we're at the point around the turn where she's making this dramatic move around the turn. I'll be honest with you, Jeff, I love the horse, always have, but at the top of the lane, I thought she's going to get tired, and she didn't. In fact, I think there was plenty left in the can. Do you agree?
That was the thing. I mean, she was cooled out before she ever got back to the barn, and really, to sustain that move and to do most of the heavy lifting around the turn, which is very difficult for horses to do, to gain ground around the turn, because they're losing momentum usually when they're going around wide. It was eye-popping, and she's an exceptional filly. You know, both physically and mentally, she's just so well composed, and her fight, her desire is just so. You know, that's the kind of stuff you can't train. That internal heart, that competitive desire, and she just really has it. You know, so it's that race in particular to me was one of the most. I mean, I've been in this game a long time, Peter, as you know, and that's one of the few races that really had me, you know, sort of speechless about just the athlete, you know, and the horse and what she was able to do.
Well, and again, Jeff, I've mentioned this before. Were you a Hall of Fame jockey? No, but you've had the experience. You know what it's like to be on, I'm just going to be blatant here, a good horse from a bad horse. What was it about this horse? I know you didn't get on him, but this was a modest purchase, $80,000 at OBS. What was it about this horse that caught your eye?
there were a couple of things there, and there's a lot of pieces into a decision being made on which horse you pulled the trigger on, as you know. And one, the mental aspects of it. She just had the mind, in her eye, just a lovely, pleasant eye, smart eye, and her presence. I go back and forth a lot. I see horses after or before they do their breeze, after their breeze, that kind of stuff. And she just maintains that certain thing that you like to see in a horse, intelligence. And then the other thing, her extension of stride. If you watch her video, which many people have since that sale, it wasn't like a sizzling, wow, grasp your attention type of thing, but her fluidity of motion when she was coming close to the wire and continued on, because I'm there watching the previews live, I just loved the way she extended her stride and leveled out when she got through the turn. And also just watching her after the breeze coming off the track. So it was all those things. And, sometimes you just got to get lucky too. But there was a lot of looks that were put into that filly. And in reality, she was just a filly I had to have. I just didn't know if we could afford her, and it all obviously worked out.
Looking at the field for Friday, I'm sure you've looked at it in nauseam. There's a fair amount of speed, including the 2-to-1 favorite, who's got to make that lead or at least be close enough from that 14 hole on a day that might have a fair amount of precipitation. Does that concern you from the 10 hole? Your horse is proven, can be involved, can take back. Is it at all a concern when you put it all together into the factor?
It really isn't. I mean, for a fairly lightly raced filly, she's far beyond her experience in terms of her abilities to overcome situations. I mean, she's shown she could have a much more forwardly placed scenario, as well as we've talked about in the Oaks. We know she can handle the off-going. In particular, her situation here since arriving from California, you would never know she shipped. I mean, she's just responded so well and favorably to the surroundings. And so as far as the pace scenario, one would expect that you would see a little bit more of a contested pace. You mentioned Monomoy Gruel, and they drew the unfortunate extreme outside, which kind of ties their hand a little bit in terms of having to get position and going from there. But it's always interesting, too, Peter. You watch a lot of races, and oftentimes when you look on paper and you think, okay, this is how it's going to play out, and then it's 180 degrees different than that. And so the beauty of that is with our filly, two things. One, we know she's versatile. Two, we've got Mike Smith. And anytime Mike Smith is on your horse, in my opinion, that factor, that worry piece just goes out the window because he just knows what to do. The guy's got ice in his veins. He's intelligent. He's got, he's a Hall of Famer and beyond, and especially in race situations like this. And he also knows the fillies. So I can assure you Mike's going to be fully aware of who's in there, what fillies should potentially have speed, which ones shouldn't. But I love it because I get to just sit back and enjoy the ride, so to speak, and watching what Mike does.
And as you mentioned, I mean, many a rider will say that you don't often want to call an audible too much. You want to have an opinion. You want to have a plan of what you're doing in a race. But I have to say, flip-flopping on that decision, if you have to have a rider who can call a split-second audible, Mike Smith is the guy.
That's one of the difference makers, too. I mean, there's so many things happen so quickly in a horse race. No matter how much planning, at the second the gates open, everything changes. And, Mike is just the consummate professional. He's exceptional at adjustments and understanding what needs to be done, what shouldn't be done. And somebody was asking me earlier this morning out there at the track, what kind of conversation will you have with Mike when you're in the paddock about the race? And it'll have nothing to do with it. It'll just be like, where'd you have dinner last night? And where are you staying? Because the other piece, the actual race and strategy, he knows what to do.
Yeah, and more times than not, they always say if you have to give too much instructions, maybe you got the wrong guy or gal on board. Listen, Jeff, we really appreciate you taking the time here. All I can say is good luck to you and your partners, to Bill Spawr, Mike Smith, and more importantly, to Bisou. Thank you again for being with us, and we're going to cross our fingers, we're going to make our wagers, and hopefully we see you in the winner's circle on Friday.
Thank you so much, Peter. Really appreciate it.